culture is so powerful. I call it God, small g. It molds our personality, it shapes our mentality, and in turn, it dictates what we think, how we behave, decide, and act. Let me share with you a very relevant analogy to show you the power of culture over humanity. When I was in veterinary medicine, we used to create cultures to harvest microbials. Using Petri dish, we created the right cultures that produced the kind of microbials we were interested. For instance, I can use the same bacteria, two different cultures, to produce two totally different bacteria. I can use two different Petri dishes with totally different nutrients, chemicals, and place them into two different environments, resulting in different acidity, pH, and so on. For the sake of convenience, let me use a bacteria we all may know, which is anthrax. I can plant the same bacteria into two different cultures and get a biological weapon from one, while a vaccine from another one. What happened? Culture happened. Otherwise, I use the same bacteria, but two different cultures to harvest two totally different results. Each and every one of us is a product of our native culture. It molded and shaped us. Even if we may not be totally aware how culture created us, we are blind loyals. We defend our culture, even those cultural attributes that are outdated and disempowering. That's why I call culture God, small g. That's why societies that understood the power of culture, they leveraged it. Think of Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and China. Without changing who they are, their language, history, music, and so on and so forth, they reformed their culture, and therefore they experienced economic miracles. Here is a sad reality. Many well-meaning countries, they sent delegates to learn and draw lessons from these countries that experienced economic transformation. They went there to learn what led these countries to be economically successful, and then translate that to experience the same economic miracle. But they didn't. Yes, they took notes, interviewed leaders, copied some systems and policies. They went back home and invested their scarce resources to implement what they learned. It didn't work. Indeed, they adopted some of the systems, institutions, and laws. However, they couldn't create the right environment for these changes to bear fruits. There were cultural values that sabotaged the change efforts. There were also some values that were lacking, which could have supported the change efforts. Likewise, there were companies that leveraged culture and thrived even during tough times. I want you to think about Toyota, General Electric, Ethiopian Airlines, and so on and so forth. These corporations understood the power of culture and used it in their own advantage. They created and intentionally nurtured vibrant and robust cultures. These enduring and successful companies understood that the latest technologies, talented employees, or abundant finance won't be able to give them a competitive edge, especially in this highly competitive era. To leverage their other advantage, these companies, they created a unique, robust, and vibrant culture that advanced their mission, protected and translated their vision into realities. And they created a culture that aligned with their brand. Nonetheless, these are not just societies and corporations that are leveraging culture. If you study those nonprofit organizations that are successful, those that you and I admire, They have a unique, vibrant, and robust culture. Let me just pick one organization, which is a nonprofit organization. You may already know this institution, the U.S. Navy SEALs. Let me ask you, when I mentioned Navy SEALs, what came to your mind? I'm assuming that elite special forces, exceptionally trained to be effective in sea, air, and land, mentally tough, loyal, courageous, and resilient military group. Think about it. The U.S. Navy SEALs is not the only military group in the United States. It lives within the same U.S. culture. It recruits candidates from the same population. So what made the U.S. Navy SEALs unique? Culture. I want you to remember this. Whenever your company is mentioned, people have opinions about your company in their heads. They may be inaccurate, subconscious, you may not agree with them, but they have opinions about you. They define you in certain ways based on your culture. Like they think of highly trained, loyal, resilient military force. When they think of the Navy SEALs, they do have some picture in mind when your name is mentioned. They may say, oh, they are lovely, caring, and compassionate, or they are responsive, responsible, and accurate. Or they may say, oh, they are very slow, reactive, irresponsible, and so on and so forth. Coming back to the story of the U.S. Navy SEALs, what are their cultural values? Here are some of their core values: loyalty, honor, courage, discipline, respect, and excellence. Don't forget that a culture attracts people who share its values. And those companies that understand the power of culture, they have filtering mechanisms. They don't allow bad apples to corrupt their culture. They don't allow the wrong people to get into the door. They don't dilute their culture by bringing people who don't have unwavering commitment to the shared values. Among many filtering approaches, the Navy SEALs uses Hell Week. This is the week that tests the physical and mental toughness of candidates. Those who don't qualify, they ring the infamous bell and walk away. Of course, you don't need to duplicate the same culture the Navy SEALs has. You can have your own unique culture. What you need is a culture which has empowering core values, a culture that creates the right atmosphere, which allows your people to advance your mission, translate your vision into reality, a vibrant culture that aligns with your brand. Of course, you cannot just create a culture and autopilot it. You must have in place people and processes to keep it vibrant and, if necessary, reform it. If you'd like us to help you create a unique, vibrant, and robust culture or reform the existing one, don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to working with you. Thank you very much for watching.